Welcome into This is Baseball. My name is Brandon Johnson. Thank you for tuning into the show today. Today's episode is about 3 relief pitchers that accomplished something unique and accomplished something that I don't think will ever happen again. So there are 3 pitchers that won not only the Cy Young Award, but an MVP award in the same season. So in 1981, Rollie Fingers won for the Milwaukee Brewers, Willie Hernandez in 1984 for the Detroit Tigers, and Dennis Eckersley in 1992 for the Oakland A's. And this episode really came to be when I was doing the best starts in Major League Baseball history, and I was looking at the 1984 Detroit Tigers, and they got off to their 18-2 start and eventually won the World Series. And I was looking at that roster, and Willie Hernandez really stuck out to me. He was their closer that year, and he ended up winning, like I said, MVP and Cy Young. And I think that is something that is just completely different in today's game. I know that there are more awards now than there were back then. I know there's awards for relief pitchers specifically, and it's almost like you had to do something insane as a relief pitcher to be considered for a Cy Young award, let alone an MVP award. But I wanted to just look at their seasons a little bit and then compare them to some players today and what a player would maybe have to do in order to win an MVP or a Cy Young as a reliever, or if it's even possible. So, important thing to note, in this era of baseball in the 80s, and it changed a little bit in the 90s, but relief pitchers in general were used differently. So, statistically, it's a little bit different. So, Rollie Fingers, let's start with him. 1981. He was an all-star, Cy Young Award winner, MVP. And I'm looking at his stats, and let's just not overanalyze this, but he had 78 innings pitched, which isn't anything that's abnormal in today's game. But he only had 28 saves, and he led the league in 1981 with 28 saves. So you always had relief pitchers that would come in and close out games, but it was really in the 80s where the idea of a specialist, a closer that would come in these high leverage situations and pitch that 9th inning is kind of when that came to be. And Rollie Fingers led the league with those 28 saves that I mentioned, and 28 saves is like half of what a great closer gets in a modern season. So you had those 28 saves over 78 innings, a 1.04 ERA, which is phenomenal. And he pitched in 47 games. So a lot of the games that he pitched in weren't even save opportunities. I'm looking at this season and I'm like, something just doesn't add up here. And then I do some more research and I realize, oh, okay, in 1981, Major League Baseball had a strike-shortened season. So they played somewhere between 102 and 111 games, but they had a break from June 12th to August 10th. So basically 2 months of the season, the players were on strike. So they split the season into 2 halves. The first place teams from each half in each division played each other in a best-of-5 divisional playoff series, which now I'm looking at his stats and it adds up a little bit more, and it makes a lot more sense because I was like, oh, he didn't do anything really all that crazy, but he was traded to Milwaukee that season and led them to their first playoff appearance. So he was a monumental part of Milwaukee's success in a very weird season. But yeah, I was looking at that and I was just like, how did he win MVP? And it makes a whole lot more sense looking at the context of that season. Now, here's some crazy numbers that I want to move on to. And this is with Willie Hernandez with the 1984 Detroit Tigers. The Detroit Tigers won the World Series that year. They've won 104 games. So, Willie Hernandez, first off, He pitched 140 innings as a reliever, which is insane to even think about that happening in today's game. There's a lot of starters that would be lucky to hit 150 innings. So to think that back then you had a reliever that clearly had a major impact on his team's success, pitched 140 innings, is insane. He had 32 saves that year. He had a 1.92 ERA. And pitched in 80 games total, but clearly a workhorse. And looking at Willie Hernandez's career, he played from 1977 to 1989. He had really a 3-year stretch where he was great, and it was from 1984 to 1986. He was an all-star in 3 of those seasons, and Cy Young and MVP in 1984. Now, let's move on to Dennis Eckersley. So Dennis Eckersley is interesting because he started his career as a starter, and he was a good starter, even threw a no-hitter as a starter. He was a Cy Young finalist multiple times, was in the All-Star game a couple times as well. But late in his career, he ended up being converted to a closer and being one of the best closers ever. And in 1992 with the Oakland A's, he was good enough to win himself a Cy Young Award and MVP award. So, looking at his stats, more of a traditional closer. He threw 80 innings that year. He had 51 saves, which is fantastic. Led the league in that. And he had a 1.91 ERA. And in comparison to other closers that year, he had 10 more saves than the next closest. He threw 14 more innings than the next closest closer and had significantly better ERA as well. So just top of the class from a relief standpoint. And his strikeout to walk ratio was 8.45. So he had 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings to 1.2 walks per 9, and a whip under 1, which is where you want to be. League average is 1, and he was 9.13 in whip. The A's did make the playoffs that year, but they lost to the Blue Jays, and the Blue Jays actually ended up winning the World Series over the A's. So I was looking at today's game, really over the last 15, 20 years, and just looking at some relief pitchers that stood out in my mind, and I started with the early 2010s Craig Kimbrell. I remember him with those Braves teams just being dominant for multiple years in a row. So from 2011 to 2014, 2011, 46 saves, 42 saves in 2012, 50 saves in 2013, 47 saves in 2014, and all of those numbers he led the league in. Where did he stand in Cy Young Award voting and MVP? So in 2011 with the 46 saves, he had an ERA just over 2, but he was 9th in Cy Young, 23rd in MVP. He did win Rookie of the Year, so he did get his recognition there. 2012 Cy Young Award, he was 5th, 8th in MVP. So he's getting looks, he's getting votes. 2013 with the 50 saves, Cy Young 4th, MVP 11th. And then in 2014, he had those 47 saves and Cy Young Award. He was 9th in voting there and wasn't even considered for MVP. So extremely difficult for a reliever to get that recognition. And if you look at Craig Kimbrell's 2013 season where he had the 50 saves versus Dennis Eckersley's 1992 season. Now, you can say it was a different game, it was a different time, but it's really easy to make an argument that Craig Kimbrell's 2013 season was better than that 1992 MVP Cy Young Award season. Dennis Eckersley, 1.91 ERA. Craig Kimbrell, 1.21 ERA. 50 saves for Kimbrell, 51 for Dennis Eckersley. I mentioned the strikeouts per 9. Dennis Eckersley in 1992, 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. Craig Kimbrell in 2013, 13.2 strikeouts per 9 innings. Now, who won Cy Young in 2013? Well, that was Clayton Kershaw of the Los Angeles Dodgers. He went 16-9 with a 1.83 ERA. led the league with that 183 ERA. He had 3 complete games. 2 of them were shutouts, 236 innings pitched, 232 strikeouts, and he was 7th in MVP voting. So this was like, you're not going to win these awards as a reliever in Major League Baseball. Now, Clayton Kershaw, well deserved. He won. In fact, he won 3 Cy Young awards in 4 seasons from 2011 to 2014. So that same stretch of Craig Kimbrel's dominance, you had Clayton Kershaw out on the West Coast just dominating as a starter. In fact, Clayton Kershaw was so good in 2014 that he won the Cy Young Award and MVP as a starter. Only him and Justin Verlander can say that they've done that since Dennis Eckersley, as far as pitchers go. Big difference is they were starters when they did it. Now, just for reference, the last relief pitcher to win the Cy Young Award was Eric Gagne with the 2003 Dodgers. He had 55 saves that season. And I wanted to look at Mariano Rivera's stats because I was thinking, who's the most dominant closer that I can think of over the last 20 years? And it's the all-time saves leader, Mariano Rivera. And he never came close to being considered for MVP. He got votes. He was top 10 a couple times. He was a Cy Young finalist multiple times. He was a Cy Young finalist 4 times in his career, but he had multiple seasons where he had 50 or more saves. And if the great Mariano Rivera can't get a Cy Young Award or MVP award, then I don't think anybody can, because again, 2004, very comparable to what Dennis Eckersley accomplished in 1992, 53 saves over 78 innings, 1.94 ERA, strikeouts per 9, 7.6. So very, very similar, just different era where the relief pitchers just weren't going to get that recognition. And last player I wanted to look at was Wade Davis in his 2015 season, because I remember him being so dominant in the Royals bullpen, just in general being dominant. And I think the reason that a lot of people build their bullpens the way they do right now is because of the 2014-15 Royals. But I remember Wade Davis in 14 and 15, just lights out, automatic out machine. In 2015, he took over as the closer for an injured Greg Holland, had an ERA under 1 at .94, only had 17 saves, over 67 innings, but just had such an impact on the success of that team. Was good enough to be top 6 in Cy Young Award voting, and he even got MVP votes as well. So people think about you, but the odds of you winning these awards as a reliever is pretty much slim to none at this point, and that is why they have the Relief Pitcher Award now. But that's my episode for today. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, leave a review. That helps a lot in reach for me. So you can leave a 5-star review or a rating. I'd appreciate it. I will see you in the next one.